This story is titled, I Caught My Future Wife, not anymore, Kissing Another Man at Our Wedding. When confronted, she said it was just a friend kiss on lips and laughed, calling me a jealous failure. I simply left, cutting her off, and the next day my phone blew up with 34 missed calls from her dad and mom. Hey everyone, I'm a 32-year-old guy who has always been extremely cautious when it comes to relationships. My friends even nicknamed me Reserved Ryan because I was notorious for never fully committing to anyone until I was absolutely certain they were right for me. I always took my time, assessed compatibility carefully, and protected my heart. That all changed when I met Olivia. Something about her was different, and for the first time in my life, I let my guard down completely. After 2 wonderful years together, I finally worked up the courage to propose. She said yes, and we planned to have our engagement party at her father's prestigious country club last Saturday. For context, Olivia's family is seriously wealthy. Her father, Victor, is a prominent real estate developer with connections throughout the city. From the moment we met, Victor made it painfully clear that he thought his precious daughter was settling by choosing me. I run my own custom furniture business, which is successful but modest. Certainly not the investment banking career he'd envisioned for the man who would marry his princess. Despite the tension with her father, I was genuinely excited about our engagement party. The event was in full swing, with about 100 guests mingling throughout the country club. After chatting with some colleagues, I realized I hadn't seen Olivia for a while. I started searching for her, checking the main hall, the terrace, and even the ladies' room, by asking a female guest to check for me. After about 15 minutes of increasingly worried searching, I finally opened the door to a coat room tucked away in a side hallway. What I saw stopped me cold in my tracks. There was Olivia, her arms wrapped tightly around a man I recognized as her ex-boyfriend Marcus. They were kissing passionately, completely lost in each other, and oblivious to the world around them. I just stood there, frozen, watching the scene unfold in front of me. It felt like an eternity, though it was probably only seconds. Marcus saw me first and stepped back from Olivia, a flicker of surprise crossing his face. Olivia turned around, and her reaction is something I'll never forget. Instead of looking guilty or apologetic, she rolled her eyes at me as if I was overreacting to something trivial. Seriously, Ryan, it's just a goodbye kiss, she said dismissively. We have history. When I didn't immediately respond, honestly, I was too shocked to form words. Her demeanor changed to irritation. God, don't be such an insecure loser, she snapped. Marcus and I dated for years. We're just getting closure. Marcus smirked behind her, adding, Yeah, man, don't make this weird. In that moment, something inside me just clicked off. It was like a switch had been flipped, and suddenly all my feelings for Olivia were disconnected. I simply nodded, smiled politely, and walked away. Ryan! Olivia called after me, her voice sharp with command. Don't you dare make a scene! I didn't make a scene as Olivia had commanded. Instead, I quietly left the coat room, grabbed my jacket from the main hall, and drove home in silence. My mind was surprisingly clear despite what had just happened. The entire drive home, my phone was buzzing non-stop with increasingly frantic texts from Olivia. She wasn't apologizing, though. She was angry that I was embarrassing her by leaving the party. Apparently, her father was furious about my abrupt departure as well. When I got home, I turned my phone off completely. I didn't want to deal with her excuses or accusations. Instead, I started methodically packing my essential belongings. Our apartment suddenly felt foreign to me, like I was just a visitor in what had once been our shared space. By 2 a.m., I had loaded everything I absolutely needed into my truck: clothes, personal items, important documents, and a few sentimental possessions. Before leaving, I placed the engagement ring, a vintage piece that had belonged to my grandmother, on the kitchen counter. Beside it, I left a simple note that read, "Goodbye kiss." The symmetry felt appropriate. I drove straight to my buddy Nathan's place. He's the kind of friend who doesn't ask questions when you show up at his door in the middle of the night looking shell-shocked. He was waiting with a cold beer and offered me his spare bedroom without hesitation. That night, I slept better than I expected to, like a weight had been lifted off my shoulders. The next morning, I finally turned my phone back on to find dozens of missed calls, countless texts, and several voicemails. Most were from Olivia, but there was one particularly memorable voicemail from Victor. He was screaming about how I'd humiliated his daughter by walking out of the engagement party, demanding that I call him back immediately to fix this disaster. His voice had that particular tone of someone who wasn't used to being disobeyed. That's when I made a conscious decision about how to handle this situation. There would be no dramatic showdown, no public confrontation, just consequences. I would simply remove myself from their lives, completely dotted, quote, "It's been 5 days since I walked out of the engagement party. Thank you all for the support on my original post. I honestly didn't expect it to blow up like that, but your comments have been incredibly validating during this difficult time." The day after the party, I went back to our apartment while I knew Olivia would be at work. I moved out the rest of my belongings, taking only what was undisputedly mine and leaving behind anything we had purchased together. I left my key next to the engagement ring on the counter, making my exit as clean and final as possible. Shortly after I finished moving out, Victor called me again. His tone had changed completely from the angry voicemail he'd left earlier. "Ryan, I think there's been a misunderstanding," he said in the message, his voice suddenly polite and controlled. "Please call me back so we can discuss this like gentlemen." The shift in his approach was remarkable but completely transparent. I didn't call Victor back. Instead, I contacted all of our wedding vendors and canceled everything. Despite Victor's considerable wealth, I had insisted on paying my fair share of the wedding expenses and had put down most of the deposits myself. I explained the situation to each vendor, and most were understanding. Several even offered partial refunds, which I appreciated. Meanwhile, Olivia's texts had undergone a transformation of their own, shifting from angry accusations to desperate pleading. "Please talk to me." It wasn't what it looked like. "We need to talk about this in person." The most revealing message came 3 days after the party. "Marcus means nothing to me. He was just there and it happened. Don't throw away what we have over something so stupid." After days of silence, I finally replied with 2 simple sentences. "I'm not throwing away what we had. You already did that." That same afternoon, Olivia showed up unannounced at my job site. I was in the middle of meeting with an important client about a custom dining table when her BMW pulled up. She stormed over to where we were standing, completely ignoring my client and their obvious discomfort at the interruption. "You need to stop this childish silent treatment," she said loudly, not caring who heard her. "We're getting married in 4 months." I excused myself from my client and walked Olivia back to her car, trying to minimize the scene she was creating. "We're not getting married," I told her calmly. "I've already canceled the vendors." Her face transformed from angry to shocked in an instant. "You what?" "I canceled everything," I repeated. "You can't do that," she sputtered. "My father has already invited his business associates." "Then I guess you and Marcus will have to figure something out," I replied, unable to keep a hint of bitterness from my voice. That's when she slapped me, hard enough that my client definitely saw it from where they were standing. "Screw you!" she shouted. "I was going to tell you it was a mistake, that Marcus caught me off guard. But now I'm glad you saw us. You never deserved me anyway." As she was getting into her car to leave, I said something that seemed to hit harder than anything else had. "You know what's interesting? You're more upset about the canceled wedding than losing me." She had no response to that. She just drove away, tires screeching against the pavement. Later that day, Victor called again. This time, I decided to answer. "Ryan," he said, his voice carefully controlled as if he was speaking to a difficult business associate. "We need to discuss this situation." "There's nothing to discuss," I replied flatly. "Don't be hasty," he urged, a hint of his usual commanding tone breaking through. "Everyone makes mistakes." I couldn't help but laugh slightly at this. Is Olivia sorry it happened or sorry I saw it? After a telling pause, he changed tactics. "Look, I understand you're hurt," he said, with what I assume he thought was sympathy. "But perhaps we could come to an arrangement to make this go away quietly." It took me a moment to realize what he was suggesting. "Are you trying to bribe me to marry your daughter after she cheated?" "I wouldn't phrase it that way," Victor replied smoothly. "I'm offering compensation for your emotional distress." I laughed again and hung up without another word. The audacity was almost impressive. That evening, I received a text from a number I didn't recognize. "This is Marcus. We should talk man to man." I blocked him without responding. What could he possibly have to say that would matter? The weird thing is, I'm not even angry anymore. I'm just done. 2 weeks have passed since my last update, and things have gotten even more interesting. I've received a lot of questions, so let me address some common ones. Yes, I've blocked Olivia on all social media and messaging platforms. No, I didn't let her keep the engagement ring. It was my grandmother's and holds significant sentimental value. Yes, I've told our mutual friends what happened, but only when they've asked me directly. I haven't been running a smear campaign. The truth doesn't need embellishment. After I declined Victor's attempt to essentially bribe me into reconciling with Olivia, he took a more direct approach. He showed up at my office unannounced one afternoon. My assistant came to get me looking visibly uncomfortable, explaining that there was a man insisting on seeing me. When I entered our reception area, I found Victor sitting there in his expensive suit, looking completely out of place among my workshop catalogs and wood samples. "We need to talk," he stated, as if this was a scheduled meeting. I led him to my private office, preferring to keep whatever this was away from my employees. Once the door closed, he got straight to the point. "I've been doing some research on your business," he began, with a smug smirk that made my skin crawl. "You've done well for yourself considering your background." "What do you want, Victor?" I asked, not interested in his condescending small talk. His smile thinned as he shifted to business. "You have loans on your equipment," he noted casually. "You've also bid on the Riverdale Park project." Then, with a calculated pause, he added, "Did you know I'm on the board that approves those bids?" My stomach tightened, but I kept my expression neutral. "Are you threatening my livelihood because I won't marry your cheating daughter?" "I'm simply pointing out that actions have consequences," he replied with practiced innocence. "Olivia made a mistake. One kiss and now you're punishing her by humiliating our family." "One kiss I happened to see," I corrected him. "And I'm not punishing anyone. I'm protecting myself." He leaned forward in his chair, his tone becoming more insistent. "Be reasonable. The wedding can be postponed, not canceled." "Why are you so desperate for this wedding to happen?" I interrupted, genuinely curious now. "You never even liked me." Something flickered across his face. Worry, perhaps? "Olivia wants this marriage," he said firmly, but I wasn't convinced. "No, she doesn't," I replied with certainty. "She wants a wedding. There's a difference." That's when everything clicked into place. This wasn't about Olivia's happiness or even about protecting the family's reputation. There was something else at stake. After Victor left with a not-so-subtle reminder about the Riverdale bid my company had submitted, I called my friend Lucas, who works at a law firm that handles some of Victor's company's contracts. "Can you check something for me?" I asked. "Anything unusual going on with Victor Bennett's company?" Lucas called back an hour later, his voice hushed as if he was afraid of being overheard. "Dude, how did you know? It's not public yet, but there are rumors. Their quarterly reports had some concerning discrepancies. The SEC is looking into it." Suddenly, Victor's desperation made perfect sense. He needed the wedding to project stability and normalcy for his company while under financial scrutiny. A high-profile canceled engagement would draw exactly the kind of attention he was trying to avoid. I sent Victor a simple text. "I know about the SEC." He didn't respond, but interestingly, the Riverdale Park Board approved my bid the very next day. Sometimes, silence speaks volumes. Meanwhile, Olivia had started telling everyone who would listen that I was controlling and jealous, and that she'd escaped our relationship. I'd gotten concerned calls from several friends asking if I was okay, and if the breakup had made me unstable. I simply tell them the truth. I found her kissing her ex and I left. Most people understand immediately. Then came the real bombshell. Marcus's girlfriend, yes, he had one, reached out to me on Instagram. Her name is Zoe, and she had receipts. Literal receipts. "Marcus has been cheating on me with Olivia for months," she wrote. Not just a goodbye kiss. I found their messages. We met for coffee the next day, and she showed me everything. There were text conversations going back at least 6 months, plans for hotel meetups, explicit messages, and discussions about their future together. It was overwhelming and nauseating to read through. In one particularly revealing message, Olivia had written, "Ryan is just a stepping stone. He has good connections for my interior design business. Once I've established myself, we can be together." As Zoe and I compared notes, we realized that the night before our engagement party, Marcus had promised to break up with Zoe so that he and Olivia could finally be together publicly. The goodbye kiss I had witnessed wasn't a farewell at all. It was a celebration of their plan finally coming together. "What are you going to do with this?" Zoe asked after showing me everything. "Nothing," I said, surprising even myself with the response. "I don't need to do anything. The truth will come out on its own." And it did. Just a few days later, Olivia's best friend Megan called me. We've always gotten along well, and she's always struck me as one of the more genuine people in Olivia's social circle. "I can't believe what she did to you," she said, sounding upset. "She's telling everyone you were abusive, that you controlled her money and isolated her." "You know that's not true," I replied, grateful that at least one person in their group wasn't buying the narrative. "Of course I do," Megan assured me. "That's why I'm calling. I've known about her and Marcus for a while. I should have told you." After a brief pause, she added, "I've sent you an email. The email contained an invitation to Olivia's freedom celebration party scheduled for that weekend. She had invited everyone in our social circle, and of course, Marcus would be there. I realized that Megan had probably sent me the invitation, so I'd know what Olivia was doing behind my back. I appreciated the heads up. Without much thought, I forwarded the invitation to Victor with no comment. 10 minutes later, Victor called me. "What do you want?" he asked, his voice tight with barely contained anger. "Nothing," I replied honestly. "Just thought you should know what your daughter is up to while you're trying to save her engagement." He hung up without another word. I imagine the conversation he had with Olivia afterward was not pleasant. I'm obviously not going to Olivia's freedom celebration party. The thought of showing up to that circus is laughable. Instead, I'm focusing on moving forward with my life in meaningful ways. The sale of my share in the apartment we once shared is going through without any issues. I've also officially started work on the Riverdale project, which represents the largest contract my business has secured to date. And perhaps most importantly, I've even had coffee with someone new. No pressure, just nice conversation with an interesting person who seems genuine. Sometimes the best revenge isn't some elaborate scheme or public humiliation. It's simply letting people reveal who they truly are through their own actions. It's been 3 months since my last update. Many of you have sent DMs asking for closure on the situation, so here's what's happened since then. Olivia's freedom celebration party apparently didn't go as she had planned. According to Megan, who has become a surprisingly good friend through all of this, Victor showed up completely uninvited. He arrived just as Olivia and Marcus were getting cozy on the dance floor, displaying their relationship for everyone to see. Victor caused what Megan described as a nuclear argument, dragging Olivia outside where their shouting could be heard by several guests. It turns out that Victor's company's financial troubles were significantly worse than anyone initially suspected. Olivia's very public behavior was adding unwanted attention and scrutiny at the worst possible time for him. The following week, the news broke publicly. Victor's company was under federal investigation for serious financial irregularities. Their stock plummeted 60% in a single day as investors scrambled to distance themselves from the scandal. During this chaos, Olivia tried contacting me yet again. She sent a long, emotional email about making the biggest mistake of her life and needing support during this difficult family time. The irony was not lost on me that she only reached out when her comfortable lifestyle was threatened. I didn't respond. Marcus, true to form, completely ghosted Olivia once the Bennett family fortune took a substantial hit. Zoe told me he actually tried getting back together with her, claiming that Olivia had pursued him relentlessly and that he had been the victim of her obsession. Zoe, to her credit, wasn't buying any of it and shut him down immediately. Meanwhile, my business has been thriving. The Riverdale Park project was completed ahead of schedule and under budget, which led to 2 more municipal contracts. I've hired 3 more employees and moved to a larger office space to accommodate our growing workshop needs. About 6 weeks ago, I was having dinner with Lily, the woman I mentioned having coffee with in my previous update. We're dating now, taking things slowly but enjoying each other's company immensely. We were in the middle of our meal when Olivia walked into the restaurant with a group of friends. She spotted me immediately, and after a visible moment of hesitation, made her way over to our table. "Ryan," she said with obviously forced cheerfulness, "how are you?" "I'm good, Olivia," I replied calmly. "This is Lily." Lily smiled politely but wisely said nothing. There was an awkward silence as Olivia seemed to be waiting for me to introduce her to Lily, which I deliberately didn't do. After the uncomfortable pause stretched on, Olivia said, "I've been thinking about you. Maybe we could talk sometime, for closure." Before I could respond, one of her friends called out from across the restaurant, "Olivia, your dad's on the phone! He says it's urgent!" Panic flashed across her face immediately. "I have to take this," she said quickly. "But call me, okay?" After she hurried away, Lily raised an eyebrow at me. "So that's the famous Olivia?" "That's her," I confirmed simply. "She seems intense," Lily commented, and we both laughed, the tension broken. I never called Olivia, of course. Last week, the news reported that Victor had pleaded guilty to securities fraud as part of a plea agreement. He's been forced to liquidate many of his personal assets, including the country club where our ill-fated engagement party was held. Megan told me that Olivia had to move out of her expensive apartment, the one we once shared, and into a much smaller place in a less prestigious neighborhood. She's also had to take a corporate job with regular hours, giving up her dreams of running an independent interior design studio, dreams that had apparently hinged on using my connections and resources. She still talks about you, Megan mentioned during our last conversation. You're the one who got away. I'm not the one who got away, I told her firmly. I'm the one who walked away. There's a difference. I don't take any pleasure in their troubles. What happened to Victor and Olivia wasn't my doing. It was simply the natural consequence of their own actions and choices. I'm just grateful that I discovered who they truly were before I legally joined their family. As for me, life is good these days. Lily and I are continuing to take things slow, building something genuine based on mutual respect and honesty. My business is thriving beyond what I'd even hoped for when I started it 5 years ago. I've even adopted a dog, a rescue lab mix named Cooper, who has quickly become my loyal workshop companion. My grandmother's ring is back in its box, safely stored away. It's waiting for the right person at the right time. Maybe that's Lily. Maybe it's someone I haven't even met yet. There's no rush to figure that out. Sometimes the worst moments in our lives can lead us exactly where we need to be. For me, that goodbye kiss I witnessed in the coat room wasn't an ending at all. It was actually my unexpected hello to a better, more authentic life.